Hello there. We're late because I thought it was Tuesday. Because I thought it was Tuesday today. It's not Tuesday. It's Wednesday. My internal clock is very thrown off. Yeah, so we're here to talk about, and by we, I mean just me. Takeerah will be here in a minute. She forgot about it too. It's fine. It's fine. Anyway, so hey, Jermaine, we're here to talk about this final episode. Guess what? Because I lost track of time. I didn't even finish it. I have like 10 minutes remaining of the episode. I don't care. I'm going to spoil it for myself to do this review. It's fine. Yeah, so I didn't finish it. Initially last week I was like maybe flying to New York yesterday, and then the ticket prices were too much and I couldn't justify it, and so I didn't go, to the Ones Who Live screening yesterday evening in New York City. Instead I stayed home. It is Wednesday. I know everybody thinks it's Tuesday or just not Wednesday, but we had a holiday on Monday, and so I think it's thrown everybody off. But it is definitely Wednesday. I just double checked because that made me panicky just now. Anyway, so I would have been in New York, but I couldn't justify. The plane tickets were $300, which is ridiculous for one evening. Can't swing it, you know what I mean? I'm not made of money. I'm just not. I'm a broke bee. So I didn't go. So anyway, I'm here for this. And Takeerah will be here for this too. Her computer died. She's a disaster. It's fine. Anyway, there she is. Anyway, I already went live, so it doesn't even matter. I was sharing that I thought it was Tuesday. Heather, I thought it was Tuesday. It's not. It's Wednesday. Also, I never finished the episode. Just wait until Sunday to watch Ones Who Live. Well, yeah, I know. No, I know. I will. I'll have to. But I was talking about how I was going to go to New York City for the live screening, and I didn't because the cost was too much. But anyway, so that's part of why I'm thrown off too, because that was like a really last minute not going to New York City thing. Anyway, I'll watch it on Sunday. I'm just not happy about it. Because allegedly I have screeners, but I have yet to see them. So it's allegedly. I don't know. It ain't holding up in court right now, let me tell you. Because I ain't got them. I got an email that says I'll have them, but I ain't got them. So we shall see what's going to happen there. So probably watching live on Sunday with everybody else. Which is fine. I'm not mad about it. I'm just really trying to stay off of Twitter right now because
they're getting in trouble as we speak.
Stuff left and right for whatever reason.
Hi, Heather.
Okay, so here's the thing. I didn't watch the end of this. I got really close. I have like 10 minutes left. I didn't finish it. I will be careful of the spoilers. Trust me. Trust. I will. Okay, but I really wanted to read an article that I just found on Forbes by Eric Kane. I'm pretty sure he's the one who wrote the last article I read about how horrible the season is. Because he had screeners, but he normally doesn't watch them in advance, but he did, and he regretted it. Anyway, here is his article called, I'm sorry, I didn't do the intro. So this is Truer Detectives, the show where we detect the things that the detectives didn't detect. And they were... We got more of that this episode. We got more of that. And we detected it even harder than they ever could.
Evangeline.
Anyway, this article in Forbes by Eric Kane is entitled True Detective Night Country, Episode 6 Review, a truly embarrassing season finale. So I just thought it'd be interesting. Just for funsies. Just for funsies. Okay. The season finale of True Detective Night Country had me yelling at my TV more than once in utter disbelief. I mean, I had a little bit of that. But again, I didn't finish it. Not only did the plot rip off Wind River in a pretty major way, it wrapped things up with some of the cringiest, most cloying nonsense I've ever seen on a major TV show. I'm shocked that HBO, the studio behind Succession, Game of Thrones, True Detective, and White Lotus, just to name a few, would air this. Oof, Eric, coming out swinging. By the way, this came out on the 18th. That's when he wrote this. Let me rattle off a few of the things I found so utterly absurd about this episode. Danvers and Navarro are in such a hurry to investigate the caves, in a storm no less, that they leave Peter to clean up not only the corpse of a junkie, Otis, but his own father who he just killed. Yeah, that seemed inappropriate at best. He has to clean this up and then visit Rose, who is apparently just perfectly happy to help the poor young man cover up these deaths. She's Rose. What are you going to do?
Mm-hmm.
Danvers and Navarro go break through the ice and, of course, make it directly into the tunnel system nobody but the teacher guy had ever heard about somehow. They fall through a lower section where, shocker of all shockers, they run into Raymond Clark, the lone survivor of the scientists. They pursue him and come to a science room that we soon learn is directly below Tsalal Station. Did I just miss how close they were to Tsalal? Because it seems like they walked about 50 feet or so and are directly beneath the base. That checks out. They went through one tunnel. They went through one very claustrophobic tunnel, and then they were bam, science. And then bam, shelf in front of a door trick. And you know what? It's always the scrapes on the floor that give you away when you've got a shelf in front of a door. Not the fact that you could literally look through it because it's a shelf. Anyway, okay, continuing. They follow Clark up into the station and eventually catch him. At this point, they have never spoken with him about what happened to Annie or the other scientists, so naturally they sit him down and start asking questions. Oh, wait, never mind. They take the loop of Annie screaming and tape the earbuds to his ears so that he has to sit there hearing the sounds of the woman he loved screaming and probably dying over and over again. Danvers and Navarro have him tied to a chair and just leave him there to be tortured while they go have another tedious conversation. For all they know, remember, he was completely innocent in her death. Okay. I mean, I did have some qualms about that. Like, not a super great interrogation tactic, but who am I to question?
No, not at all. But I thought he did it. I was like, he did something. So do it. Just do it.
Here's the thing. He did, but we only know because of a flashback.
Right.
So, I don't know. Not super great police work. That's all I'm saying. After he's been properly tortured, they decide it's time to ask the right bleeping questions and go back to do that. Though there's a confusing segment where it seems like they're just going to kill him instead, but then decide that maybe he'd actually make a valuable witness with the whole mine Tsalal stuff. Crazy police geniuses we have here. Clark reveals how Annie discovered what they were doing, which was actually pushing the mine to pollute as much as possible because it made the permafrost softer so that they could get to the miracle organism they were investigating. She tried to destroy the research and was caught and stabbed to death, though Raymond did participate. Again, we have a much less believable version of Wind River here. Raymond freaking Clark says time is a flat circle. during this whole segment, and I had to restrain myself from throwing something at my TV. But seriously, you have got to be kidding me with this crap. Eric, you're too fired up. They're basically stuck at Tsalal during the ice storm, and at one point, Navarro walks off into the ice because that's what they do in Ennis. And then Danvers falls through into the icy water, and Navarro somehow shows up in time to save her and warms her by a fire. Then they realize that it was the cleaning ladies who killed the scientists, and since I guess the blizzard is no longer an issue, they go to where I guess all the women involved in scientist deaths are conveniently hanging out. Unlike previous seasons, which often have investigations that span many years or even decades, this one is wrapped up in 2 weeks. True, that does make it very different than the other seasons. I didn't know that because I didn't watch this far. This was like right when I stopped. So now I know that. Navarro and Danvers decide to cover the whole thing up, which basically just involved all these badass boss ladies showing up to Tsalal and turning off the power, and Raven randomly saying she's awake for no reason. And then rounding up the scientists at gunpoint, driving them into the ice, forcing them to strip, and then run off into the night, where they froze to death. They blame this on a spirit who, had it been merciful, would have let the men survive. I blame it on the women forcing them all out there at gunpoint and making them strip and run off into the ice. I guess the bet was wrong, and the dudes really did just die by freezing to death. I guess you can't trust a vet and his, what was it? His preliminary.
I'm
His
just gonna go ahead and say they didn't decide to cover it up. It was already decided before they decided to finish investigating. Like,
Oh,
it
that's
wasn't
true. The
the
mine
case
wanted to
was
cover it up.
closed. Yeah.
Yeah. The mine, you may recall, wanted all of this covered up. Well, it looks like the mine will get its way. Everybody wants it all covered up. In the end, we get a little nod to earlier seasons with them interviewing Danvers about what happened and where Navarro and Hank disappeared to. It's all just wildly unsatisfying as far as the resolution goes. None of the supernatural stuff paid off. The scientists murdered Annie, which was the first theory almost everyone had. People had guessed that the cleaning ladies were responsible for the scientist's death, but the way it went down just came across as a massive, unearned head fake that tried to have its supernatural cake and eat it too. Danvers and Navarro end up being some of the worst police on the show, turning directly to torture the moment they find the guy they've been searching for, not to mention leaving poor Peter to deal with his dead father. Of all these characters, I like virtually none of them. Peter's wife, Kayla, is deeply unlikable from the get go. Preach it. Relentlessly petty despite him working such a big case. Danvers' stepdaughter Leah is just as bad. I don't find that, but okay. Constantly making life hard for Danvers with no sense of remorse despite, again, a major murder investigation going down. And Christmas being a time when some folk try to treat one another just that much nicer. Danvers and Navarro are routinely awful to one another, and their backstory isn't even that interesting. Peter seems like a nice enough guy. I suppose Rose is all right too, but it's mostly a character with very little reason for even existing. I'm not sure how anybody walks away from this finale thinking it worked. None of the more interesting fan theories came true. As far as the murder mysteries of the scientist and Annie go, neither was much of a mystery at all. I know that myself and plenty of others made the Wind River guess after the very first episode. So, Eric, just really harsh there.
Eric annoyed me after a while. It could be that everything annoys me for the past couple days, and that's probably going to be like that for a while.
That's
But
true.
he definitely started to annoy me. Um, it just reminds me of when Sonia says those male reviews, they start off well and then they go after a while.
I mean, I don't agree with that, but he never liked it to begin with. He never stated anything to the alternative. And honestly, the show has not received positive criticism as much as it's received negative criticism. You haven't watched season 1. I think if you went back and did, you would be like, "Oh." I see, because watching this season by itself probably has a completely different effect. Season 1 was really good. It had a really high bar that like this is being held up to. And I think had they just gone with like this just being a different show, probably would have been better off for everybody involved.
I mean, it's like the same thing with my brain doesn't work. What's the show? Coven and
Oh, American Horror Story.
yeah, it's like the same thing with American
Mhm.
Horror Story. It's gonna be hit or miss depending on which
Mhm.
season you catch.
I will say this, I don't like American Horror Story at all. Any of the seasons.
I
It's just
adore American Horror
it's
Story.
just not that good. It's just not that good. And people are ride or die for that show.
Hmm.
And it's like not that good. Season 1 is the best. I agree, Heather. I watched like the first 3 seasons. Season 1 is the best. And at that point I was just like absolutely done with it. And I thought season 2 would be good. Asylum, it wasn't. It was so weird. Anyway,
Every other season, Bridget, you have to watch every other
that's
season.
so dumb. That's so dumb. That's not a precedent. That's not a precedent that a television show should have. Heather says, I always find it interesting when I don't like the main character at all, but somehow still like the show. Usually not the case for me, but it worked for me here.
Me too, Heather.
I I don't hate the show. I'm not saying I hate it. I do. I think it's the greatest. No. Oh, season 1 of True Detective. Yes, so good. Even season 2 wasn't like even season 2 was already like you can't top Woody Harrelson and Matthew McConaughey. I'm sorry. It ain't happening. It's the dream team. It is the dream team. All right, now I did come out swinging with a really negative review, okay? I did. But I do have another article that was written by Slate again. This time by Rebecca Onion. So sorry that that's your last name. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry that that's happening for you. She probably doesn't even care, and I'm like apologizing so much for no reason.
Ah.
Okay. So sounds made up. Maybe she made up that name. She like really likes it. I'm like being really judgmental. Okay, so Rebecca Onion did I don't know if she directly did an interview with Issa Lopez, but this has to do with what Issa Lopez had to say about the whole season.
Mm.
So obviously she directed it and wrote it, so she's gonna have positive things to say, I would think. But anyway, we'll just go through this. True Detective Night Country's showrunner on that ambiguous ending. The finale's biggest open questions are designed to have 2 answers. This was again written on the 18th. True Detective Night Country wrapped tonight with a supersized 6th episode that saw detectives Liz Danvers and Evangeline Navarro finally descend into the much discussed ice caves, nab the mad scientist Clark, get stuck in the freezing cold Tsalal station during a storm, find out the truth about the death of activist Annie Kay, and figure out, sort of, who turned the group of scientists into the famous Corpsicle. Meanwhile, the young deputy, Peter Pryor, goes on his own mission to bury the father he shot in episode 5. This is a lot of stuff into that needed to be edited. This is a lot of stuff crammed into 75 minutes. And in classic True Detective fashion, the finale left more than one open question. Writer, director, and showrunner Issa Lopez agreed to sit for an exit interview and entertain some queries about Annie's tongue, Danvarro, and that one line about a flat circle. Can't. I can't. I will give him that. That is a dumb line. It's dumb. This interview has been edited and condensed for clarity. Rebecca Onion. Oh, so Rebecca did do the interview. A lot of people who consume genre fiction set in the Arctic or the Antarctic suspected that the microorganism the scientists were digging for under the permafrost might be making everyone in Ennis go a little bit mad. We found out in this uh, final episode that this is not the case. The microorganism was making the scientists power mad instead. Issa, Yes, it's the obsession with a microorganism that gets them absolutely mad. This corrupts the ambition of finding something for good that will change human life and that will achieve beautiful things. And it makes it go into an absolute ego obsessive trip for fame and glory. To find that answer is not about science or helping humanity anymore. It's about becoming the ones bringing this into the world. Okay, I'm sorry. I know she wrote this, but like strong disagree on that. Because the entire thing with this is like this is the whole it's the whole ethical conundrum of like, do you risk the lives of the few to save the many?
Mhm.
That was the point of it, right? Like they wanted to save many lives. They were willing to risk the lives of these people in
Right.
this podunk Arctic town, which yes, it was people of the indigenous tribe that lived there, but that to them was just a side effect.
Mhm.
I'm going to save millions of lives. So this couple hundred lives, they don't matter. That's to me, that's what this brings up is that ethical dilemma. What do you do? You know, it's like, what is that ethical question about the railroad track or whatever? It's the train car question, where it's like, there's a train car on, and there's a fork in the road. And on one track there's like 5 people or whatever, and then on the other track there's one person, and nobody could move for whatever reason because this is an ethical question, not a real life question. And you can choose, does it hit the one person and kill them, or does it hit the many people and kill them? What do you do?
Yeah, and I
Yeah.
think
And there's
usually
like
the
more value, you can change it to be like there's more value to the one person,
yeah,
are
I've
the
always heard it as, like, it's your wife or your mom or you know what I
Yeah,
mean?
but it can be
Like
a bunch of different things. It could be a
yeah,
child versus old people. It can be
right.
an innocent person versus criminals. It can be a doctor versus an everyday person.
Mhm.
Like what do you do? That's the ethical dilemma, right? Like this is the same thing. It's the same thing. So I don't think you're like reinventing the wheel with this. You know what I mean? And I don't think that it's about ego. I think if anything, you went insane because you lived in Ennis for 10 years and didn't interact with anybody else. Just a thought. Um, Rebecca Onion. This explains a little bit why they're so insular or secretive at the beginning. Maybe that's just because they're all collectively spinning out on this idea. Issa, becoming paranoid. Yes, absolutely right. I did toy with the idea that it was something they find in the ice that's driving them mad. They dig into this place that they shouldn't be making holes in, an ancient cave that is obviously a special place, and they kept it a secret. There are all kinds of no-nos in this scenario. But there is already a really good TV series about microorganisms under the ice, which is called Fortitude. I would never make Fortitude. It's a completely different story. But if people are curious, they should absolutely watch Fortitude. What? Issa! Issa, are you okay? Are you okay? She's literally telling you to go watch another show during her interview. I love it. Okay. Um, at the end here, how much room is left for the functioning of the supernatural within the story? One of the questions that I think remains open is who cut out Annie K's tongue? I thought that was obvious, but okay. How did the tongue end up on the floor of the station? And that is a good question.
Mhm.
And who is the she who is awakening? Are we supposed to know the answer to those questions at the end, or are those supposed to remain open questions? Issa. There are open questions, however, there are answers. And it's too late for me to try to put the cork on that first one because John Hawkes has been going around the world telling everybody that his character Hank Pryor cut the tongue. I'm more of the school of don't give every answer because, as happens in true crime, you have many answers, but you don't know exactly how everything went down. That is 100% true. But for the character work, John and I talked about it. At the beginning, I had my doubts that the character of Hank could have done that, and John very clearly was like, oh, he did. Hank's not evil, but he has a job to do at that point, and he's a hunter. He takes Annie's body and kicks the dead body, breaking the ribs and all of that Navarro describes in the first episode. And then he cuts the tongue because that drives the message home. So that was Hank, and now I'm forced to tell it to everybody because John did. It's fine. It's fine. Doesn't sound fine. That said, how the tongue appears six later in the station, that's a different question. The entire series, every single question within the series, there is a rational explanation. There's a Danvers explanation, and then there's a Navarro explanation. And if you go the Danvers route, who found Annie's body, it was not Navarro. Navarro was the first on the scene from the police force, but the community, the women, find the body. They cannot take the body. They cannot protect this woman that has been so abused so horribly, and it's one of them. The one thing they can do is take her tongue and keep it in a gesture of kindness for their comrade. And Danvers says in episode 2, the tongue had some unusual damage, could be from freezing. So in this scenario, the women preserve the tongue, and when they take the station, they leave it there as a sign that the time of changing the story that we tell has come. Okay, I like that as a response.
Mm-hmm.
I like that as an answer for the tongue. Because, yeah, I was curious about that. Okay, hold on. Let me go back to comments. Walking Dead Eternal. Wasn't Kim Kardashian in one episode of American Horror Story? I have no idea.
Yeah, I
I
feel
have
like
no
it was more than one episode, actually.
If you're pushing for it being good content, I wouldn't bring that point up.
Oh, yeah. I don't even remember. I don't even know what
I
season it
cannot
was.
foresee her being a great actress. Maybe I'm wrong, but Heather Jenks says, but wasn't it just a theory that this would save many? And historically in this country, we've justified harm against Indigenous people because it was for the greater good subjective. Yes, I agree. I
Me
agree with
too.
that. But I
Yeah.
think the idea of them getting famous, like, I don't think you can't sell that point now after the fact. This is
Mm-hmm.
the story that you wrote. This is the story that you wrote. I think it's better to say, I'm trying to tell the story of America, like in a parallel. That makes way more sense to me, Heather. Like that right there is a better answer than what she said the answer was, in my opinion. I'm just saying. Plus, they get to a point where they're repeating themselves over and over again. So they get these like rehearsed answers in their
Yeah.
head. And so this is probably one of hers. Um, Walking Dead Eternal, it's probably She-Hulk that did it. Jermaine, what? um, and then when Navarro in episode 6 asked B, what happened to the tongue? Did you put it there? B turns to her and says, that's not part of her story. But
Mm-hmm.
look carefully at her performance. You can read it both ways. It's interesting. Now, the Navarro story is different. The tongue is cut, it's left there, and it vanishes. Where does it go? We don't know. But when the women come and it's time for the men to pay, someone leaves that tongue there because it's the time for that story to come to light and be told. Your decision. Now, your second question, who who is asleep and who wakes up and all that? This time, there's no John here who has spilled the beans. So I'm going to be able to be as vague as I love to be. Clark is convinced the she is Annie. And the
Mm-hmm.
spirit of Annie has always been in that cave forever before the ice was ice. He does say that. And
Mm-hmm.
will be there forever because time is a flat circle.
Ah.
It's so dumb. It's so dumb. That's like the one line that really is irking me. You know what I mean? Like the rest of it's fine. That is dumb though. That was just dumb. It's just like a dumb thing to say out loud. Anyway. And see, those are the kind of lines that like I know that somebody wrote it and they were like, it's so good. It sounds so good. And you're like, it doesn't sound that good. It doesn't. Nice try though. Really good try. That's Clark's story. And what's waiting for the men out there in Clark's mind is probably Annie. The same way that when the engineer Otis Heiss and his buddies found the cave, they woke that spirit of Annie and it came for them because that place should not be messed with. This is the Clark explanation, right? The women tell us they went into her home, into her place, and woke her up and killed her daughter, and she ate their souls from the inside out. I really liked that one. And Danvers would say, no, no, no. There's a cave in there which has some fossils in an interesting shape because fish can swim in that way and get frozen. And it does have a secret feel to it, but it's just a cave. This is where the men dug and then they were taken by the women because they killed Annie, and they were sent into the dark without their clothes, and they died there with a flash moment of freezing, and they had all the signs of delirium because of hypothermia and of all of the self-harming that can come with that. So everything has a rational explanation. Your decision. Rebecca Onion, you brought up Clark's time as a flat circle line. Stop. Stop it. What went into the decision to have him say that line, which is so famous from season 1? It was dumb then too. Um, I felt a very important need to establish that it's in the same universe as season 1. That while this happens in Ennis, Alaska in 2023, in 2014, those murders were happening in Louisiana. And if I'm talking about Alaska, which is the place where Russ Cole's father died, it would be very weird not to talk about it. So every single time the connections happen organically in the story, I put them there, but it has to come from the story. Yes, Heather, exactly. They really thought they killed it with that line. They did. They were like, when they wrote that originally, they're like, oh, this is so good. This sounds so good. Like the more I say it, the dumber it gets. Similarly, if I have a symbol in my story that signifies the proximity of that place where everything went down, which also connects possibly with a supernatural level where God's asleep and there's a symbol for the same thing in the first season, it would be very weird to use two different symbols. It should be the same one, right? So the spiral. Now, I have a mad scientist, literally a mad scientist, in episode 6, explaining why he's convinced that Annie's a spirit, which is a bigger force than a single woman, and has inhabited that cave forever, for all the ages. And that is not because it's eternal. It's because time means nothing for scientists. Time is a construct. Time is a flat circle. And that is a concept that comes from quantum physics. So while he's trying to explain this, it's obviously the line that comes organically. Heather, they were like, just run us our Emmy now. I can't. All of this is making me think more about Clark and Annie's relationship. This is Rebecca Onion again. And it puts a new spin on it. It's interesting that he was thinking of her as some eternal feminine. That's not Rebecca. That's not the correct use of that word. Okay. Anyway, moving on. Issa says, I think that he was absolutely enthralled. The fact that he sees the spiral on her back, that he knows there's a spiral down there in the cave, and he's losing his mind, as you said, in the obsession of this search. And then he sees this woman who has that same symbol, and his mind is going places, and he actually falls in love with her at a human level. But I think that his madness is already boiling underneath. And then everything explodes and he ends up murdering her with his own hands. And I think that the story he tells himself is that he was stopping her suffering because she was going to die anyway, right? But we don't know that. I think that there was a chance that she could have survived had he tried. Yes, because we read all those studies about freezing and how that can save your life. She probably would have lived. That's what will destroy his mind. The cognitive dissonance between I loved her and she was the most important thing and I killed her for this. And the only thing that keeps him from exploding is deciding that she's eternal, that she's indestructible and will come back. As a sort of self-soothing mechanism, asks Rebecca Onion. Yes, which might not completely be a lie, says Issa. Speaking of people who are effed for life, is Peter Pryor going to be effed for life? In Danvers' words, it's crazy the shit we survive. I think he's not. I definitely very much profoundly think he's not. I think he is a virgin spirit throughout the entire series up until that point. He does have a moral compass. He's truly trying to do the right thing. He is so confused about the fact that the person who he looks up to committed a murder, and he doesn't know what to do with that. He wishes he didn't know, but he found out because he's good at what he was trained to be good at. And then he's confronted with a moment where there's no possible action except pulling that trigger on his father. And he commits the original sin. Killing your brother or your father, especially your parents, is the original sin. That's not. You were so close, Issa. You literally said it. You said it in the beginning of the sentence. Killing your brother is the original sin. It's not really. The original sin is giving into temptation and disobeying God. It's eating the apple. That's the original sin, just from a biblical perspective. It's fine. It's fine. However, he's destroying an evil origin. Hank is everything that is pulling him to the dark, to not be himself and to not grow up and to not live his own life. And I'm absolutely not promoting the idea that you have to go around shooting your father. But I will say that in relationship to this particular series, I'm not saying that he's not going to carry it his entire life. Doesn't seem like the type of place where you go to therapy, Ennis. But it feels like this will also allow him to explode out of himself and grow in different ways, carrying that pain, carrying that doubt forever. But he's going to make it. He's going to be fine. Rebecca then says, you kind of see that in the fact that his wife finally kisses him. I know, says Isa. And then he's in bed with his baby at the very end. Rebecca, speaking of people of redemption arcs, what about Liz Danvers? She starts on the first couple episodes pretty darn unlikable, and it seems like at the end she's softened through the events of what's happened and is almost reborn when she goes down into the ice and comes back up. Yes, Issa says, because she has to die. She really dies. This is a woman who has effectively frozen her past, her pain, her loss, her life in a knot of bitterness and irony. And let's be clear, as Connolly says, that's Christopher Eccleston. She was not, and we never knew his name. Our entire coverage of this, we never knew his name. She was not nice to start with. She was a difficult woman forever, and I worked on it with Jodie. Jodie was very clear. Let's not make a woman that was perfectly fine and then went through tragedy and became shitty. No, no, no. She was a tough effing bee from the very beginning because she grows up in this incredibly male dominated push and shove culture. And then she goes through a horrible tragedy and she becomes shittier. And her emotions are completely frozen and she's terrified of being quiet with herself. She has to play white noise when she's alone because otherwise she's going to start to feel and think. Throughout the series, she's pushed and forced into facing the things she carries, into facing the loss, into facing the fear she feels for her stepdaughter. She cannot love her because she's terrified of loss, and she cannot allow anybody too close because when they get too close, she has to push them back. As Navarro says in episode 2, you're going to break Pryor's heart because when you get too close, you have to break our heart. You kick us back. In the end, she's faced with the ghost of her dead child. And I'm not saying a literal ghost, but she has to face the fact that he's dead and gone and face the pain of losing him. And she finally speaks about it. She falls through the ice and dies. I think her pulse basically stops. Navarro has to bring her out of the ice and back to life and force her to breathe. And then she can talk about Holden, and then she can cry, and then she can move on finally. And it's not that after that she's going to be Mother Teresa, because she won't, but she's going to be better. I think she's going to be kinder to herself and kinder to others. And we see her in the car with Leah and they're laughing. And Leah has her tattoo lines on her chin. So this is a different woman that we see. Okay. Rebecca, you may be aware that there's a contingent of people, including at least one writer for Slate.com, who want Danvers and Navarro to get together.
Oh my God.
I'm sorry, we're not reading that. I'm not reading it. You shippers, you disgust me.
Disgusting.
You disgust me.
Disgusting.
Okay, here's the last point of this interview. You see at the end, there's an opening for that where they're together looking out at this. Ugh, gross. No. Okay. No. No. All right. That's all the. Okay. Way to end your interview with garbage. Okay. We're done here. We're done here. Okay. So that's it, right? Like, that's it. This is it. This is the end of the series. Not the series, this season. I don't know if this is the last season, Jermaine. I have no idea. Because like I said, this one wasn't super well received critically. So I don't know that there will be another season. On top of that, season 1 went really well. Season 2 was not as great. Season 3, I literally never heard anything about season 3 at all. It looks good. I haven't watched it yet. And then season 4 came out many years later, because we're talking like season 1 was 2014. So we're 10 years later now. you know? And I don't know. I don't know that we're going to get more of this. This story is done. This story is done. I don't know how I feel. I was saying earlier, like, I don't hate it, but I'll say what I told you, Takeerah, in a different conversation, where like I struggled with this show. I struggled with this show and I struggled with Found. Okay. I struggled with both. And what I struggled with is the fact that there was not an element to the story that made me like just crazy for another second of it. Like I just had to have it. When I watched Silo, which is one of the most recent shows that I had this feeling about, which is why I bring it up. But when I watched Silo, which is on Apple TV and is absolutely killer, and if you're into dystopian future stuff, it is your jam. I promise you. When I watched Silo, I was like thirsty for the next episode. It was like I was staying up too late at night because I didn't want to go to bed because I just wanted to know what happened next. And Takeerah, I know it was the same thing for you because
Mhm.
you blew through that show. But I don't have that same feeling about this. It wasn't like, there you go, Heather. The first show
Mm.
since The Walking Dead that made me feel that is From. Fair. Very fair. So, I haven't felt that way about, like, a ton of shows. Walking Dead was definitely one of them. Um, Silo was one of them. Even, the one that you told me to watch, it's also on Apple TV, Invasion?
Mhm.
That one had me hooked hard.
Mhm.
Hard. Um, so there are shows that are like that still that come out. I think it's okay to just like a show and know that I'm never gonna watch it again.
Well, I love Found.
Oh, I know you love Found. I know you do. I'm not trying to talk trash about it. It's fine. I like covering it. Even though I'm not, like, thirsty for the next episode, I really enjoyed covering it because we met fun people through that process, so I'm thankful for that.
True that. Mood is very mellow because I am dealing with some things, some personal things, but I am here.
She
Yay.
she is. Liked this show. She did like this show.
I did. So I struggled through a couple of the episodes, not gonna lie. But I still watched all of them twice, some of them 3 times. Um, and I was actually pleasantly surprised about the finale. I actually wrote down, like, usually a happy ending comes and I'm like, "What the F is this?" Like, no.
This is
But
garbage. I
yeah.
want at least one person to die.
For this one, I wrote we actually kinda got a happy ending here, and I was happy with it. Like, I was okay with it because, um, me having a strong dislike for the personality of, Danvers,
Yes.
it didn't make me hate her. I still wanted her to, like, be okay,
Mhm.
if that makes sense, and,
Well, we talked about wanting that redemption
yeah,
for
and I
her.
just have to say this out loud. Evangeline Sukinakchuk Navarro. She got her name, and I love
Yeah,
it.
I love that.
I love it.
I do love that. Okay. That made up for a lot of the issues that I had with this last episode. Love that part. The last episode was fine. It had its moments of like, well, that's dumb. Like,
Yeah.
why are they under Tsalal? Like, that's weird. Stuff like that where you're like, okay, I guess. I wish it was more supernatural somehow, but how would you explain that? So I guess. And it's very similar to season one in that way of True Detective. Like, there's really weird supernatural elements to season one, but that's not actually what happened. But is it? It's like
Mhm.
it's one of those. So I get why they tried to mimic that. Um, but I mean, there have been a couple different points during the season where I've said something has been really ham-fisted, and that's what I am missing is that finesse.
Mhm.
It's like we tried to like wedge that into this. This could have been its own thing.
Things tended to not always gel well with the
Mhm.
episodes for me. Um, and I it seems like she had this ending in mind and then tried to figure out how to get there.
Mm. Yes. Yes. It's like, classic J.J. Abrams technique.
Mhm.
What does he call it? The mystery box? I just give you the mystery box, and then I dip, and the writers are left to try to figure that out. Good luck. At least she wrote the whole thing. Um,
Or or she had the beginning, like, just the mayhem in the beginning in mind, because it seemed like that was very on purpose and for a reason and leading somewhere. And
mhm,
then for 4 episodes, we had absolutely no idea what the hell was going on.
mhm. It was like a
And
lot
then
of
it
red herring.
yeah.
Yeah, 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 I agree. I agree. There wasn't as much payoff sometimes as I wanted there to be, and so I think
Mhm.
that's just what this is missing, is that payoff. Heather said also just watched season 5 of Fargo, and it's a standalone season like this. I really liked it. Well, that's interesting.
Oh,
I've never watched Fargo the show. Like, I've
me
watched the
either.
movie, but I haven't watched the television show. I've heard it's great. It's one of those things that, like, I haven't had time for, but I've heard really good things, so I would like to go to it eventually. Um, and I also haven't watched From because I refuse to get another streaming service.
Oh, you're gonna be so upset that you didn't watch it when you get it. And every time someone says something about From, it kind of makes me angry because it reminds me that I'm angry that another season hasn't come out yet. Like, what is happening?
Maybe I should just, like, look on Apple TV and see if I can just buy them instead.
Oh, probably,
It's
yeah,
probably a better bet. I'm struggling with this, like, "You have to have a bajillion different streaming
yeah.
services,"
Also
"You can
check
get a free
Voodoo.
trial and binge." Okay, good call, Heather.
Oh,
Good call.
yes, that's
I could do
true.
that. I could do that.
Actually, that's how I watched it. I got a free trial and I binged it.
And that's such a big time commitment for me. What's From about? So From is what's been described to me is, like, very similar to The Walking Dead in the fact that it's, like, dystopian future, like, end of the world stuff with monsters. And, I can't remember his name, but he played, what was his name in Lost?
See, I know him from,
Not Walt, but Walt's dad. Anyway, he was in Lost, and he was phenomenal on that.
he
I
was in
just
that
had it, and I just
prison
lost it.
show. I can't remember words for the past
That's
I don't
okay.
know how long, but
You're going through a lot right now.
he was in that prison show that we all watched back in the day, and I don't remember what the name
Oz?
of it is. Oz, he was in Oz, that's what I originally know him from.
I did not watch Oz. But
Okay.
yes, everybody did watch Oz. I remember everybody talking about it. Okay, so yeah, sorry we were late tonight. Just, like, rough start. Again, I thought it was Tuesday. It's Wednesday. Then Jermaine further confused me and said, "I thought you normally did this on Wednesdays." I was like, "Bro, what? Is it Tuesday? Am I wrong again?" Heather said, "If you like it like I do, you will definitely want to watch more than once." Well, then
Probably
maybe
fun.
it's worth buying then.
It is,
I'll take a look.
yeah, I'm thinking of doing a rewatch myself. I just wanna say, like, yes, it is rather dystopian, but it's nothing like The Walking Dead. I just wanna say that.
Okay.
But
That's just what I've been told. I'm just quoting
yeah,
things I've been told about it.
it's like it's more of a supernatural element to it than The Walking Dead could ever have. I mean, besides zombies walking around,
Mhm.
but there's a lot more of a supernatural element to From.
Okay. Jermaine says no difficulties this time. Correct. I let my
So
computer do a bajillion updates, and apparently that was the problem all along. So now that's fixed. Thank goodness. So I was very worried about it. Um, do you have anything else to say about this, Tahira? You've Oh my god, that was like a
Um,
reverse burp. Excuse me. I sucked in air. That was so weird. Do you have anything that you want to add? I know you
um,
don't.
yeah, I always write down these little moments. So when they're chasing the stupid jerk around the facility and he
Oh
like
yeah.
locked Danvers in, and then you see like Navarro being dragged down the hall, and I'm like so worried for her, like, oh my gosh, this is really gonna end in like her death. And then Danvers come running
I know.
and she is beating the crap out of this
That was
guy.
pretty funny.
I We laughed at that part, and when they both fell through the ice in the beginning, I cannot tell you how laughed out loud, like
Mhm.
loud. It was
Like
so
Navarro fell through
hilarious
and I
to
was
me.
like, "Oh no." And then when Danvers fell through, I'm like, "Go figure." This checks out. Yeah.
And then I wrote, I'm just like the permafrost and digging through thing and the scientists. It's very much a typical story for me because I watch so much sci-fi. And I always get so angry when people want to dig in the freaking permafrost. I
It's like,
always
just
get so
don't.
mad. Yeah.
Just
Like,
don't,
what are
okay?
you
Just don't. Just don't do it.
doing?
Just don't do it.
Leave it alone.
I did, really like the fossil on the ceiling of the ice cave. That was
Yes.
the spiral. I thought that was really cool. But I just wanna say, please stop giving us scenes of people having to wedge themselves through caves. Just I don't want any more of that in any television that I watch because it makes me feel sick to my stomach. Like I'm watching it and I'm like, yeah, it's just a TV show, but in the back of my head I'm like, "Oh my god, this is literally my worst nightmare and I wish that I was dead right now instead of watching this because I do not want to see this anymore. Stop making it."
Jermaine, it's one of it could possibly be season one. I know it's definitely one of the earlier seasons. Can't be anything past season two for Lauren Ridloff in New Amsterdam.
Okay, yeah, Jermaine just asked which episode Lauren Ridloff is on in New Amsterdam. Which I'm assuming
Um,
is a medical procedural?
yeah.
Okay.
And also Margot Bingham was there too.
Oh, okay.
um, I also wanted to say like that. So the old case, the old mystery case, I
Mhm.
always knew that Navarro did the killing of the guy. Like I just always knew. Um,
I guess I only second guessed it because we're taking so long to find out.
yeah, I just always, I don't know. I always had the feeling I didn't realize that that was where Danvers got her kid from.
I missed this part in the last couple minutes of this. I don't care. Spoil it for me. I don't care anymore
So
with this show.
it showed like, I mean, Danvers was literally about to kill
I
the
knew
guy.
there was a baby crying
Yeah.
in the background, and
Mhm.
I was like, "They have a baby?" That was all
It
I thought.
reminded me of, sorry, non-Walking Dead people, but it reminded me of Rick and Gracie and the dad
Mhm.
because,
Yeah.
they're so pissed off at this guy and everybody wants to kill him. Navarro ends up shooting him, and then it's like right after they hear a baby crying. And to
Mhm.
me, it just immediately clicked. I'm like, oh my God, that's her baby.
Did not even put that together. Not even a little bit. Are
Like,
did they
wow.
said that in the show?
They didn't, but I just feel like,
'Cause
why else?
I thought that Danvers's child died before she even lived in Ennis.
Oh, no, no, not her baby baby. I mean, like, her adopted daughter that she has right now.
I don't think so. I feel like oh, Heather said the same thing. I thought that she was married to Leah's dad.
I think it was a story that she made up for Leah.
Oh,
Yeah.
well, that is interesting.
I immediately was like, "Oh, that's because the like her having Leah and the story about the dad, none of it ever made sense." And then as soon as I heard that baby cry after they shot him, I was like, "Now everything makes sense."
Why? Here's my question though. Why would Danvers take this
Take the
baby?
baby. I think maybe she thought it would be not a replacement, but a second chance at motherhood.
Yikes.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't like that. We're back where we were. This guy, this this undead Navarro's name. Ugh. It's fine because it's over. No, it wasn't that bad. I'm just irritated now. By that. Poor Leah.
I wrote, I always wanted to go to Alaska just to see the northern lights.
Now I like never want to go. I'm like, no,
Right.
thank you.
Right.
Just kidding. I've always wanted to go to Alaska too, which is so weird because my reasoning behind it is that I really liked Into the Wild, and like that's a horrible reason to want to go to Alaska. Oh, someone died there. I'd really like to go.
Oh, my
Sounds beautiful.
original reason was because of 30 Days of Night. Isn't that a wonderful reason to want to go to Alaska?
Yeah, the whole like it being night for 3 months is not a selling point for me. It's
Oh,
not.
I think I would hate every single solitary minute of it, but my warped brain, probably with all this horror that I've been intaking since I was
I was like,
very
ooh,
young.
vampires.
Yeah, vampires and night all the time. Let's go see what that's like.
Literally last night, like we heard like I was at someone else's house and we heard like a little like no on the
Mhm.
door and they just yelled come in and I was like you just invited a vampire in and now they can come in cuz you said come in.
Or the dinosaur from Jurassic World or whatever.
It's like a bad choice. I was like that's not a good choice. That's obviously a vampire's knock.
I just want to say the native the native landies, the native ladies, however ridiculous the story was, they handled their business. I wanted them to start shooting people, but they didn't. It's okay. They, you
See,
know.
I can now live in an in-between world where I believe that the spirits killed those men, and I'm okay with that. I don't
Mhm.
need this answer of the cleaning ladies doing it. I get it, like vengeance for your friend. Fair. But it doesn't really sell me on the whole corpsicle thing. I mean, their faces were literally frozen.
Right, yeah, that's true. Well, that I think that's why she's saying it's still the well, was it the spirit?
Yeah,
Because it's still kind of unanswered of exactly why they were like that.
yeah. I agree with the veterinarian. I don't care what an autopsy said. I believe with his I believe his preliminary findings, whatever they called them. Okay. Well, I don't know. You got anything else on this, or are we done with this bad boy? Are we pulling the ripcord
We're
on this
done. I was gonna ask you exactly what Navarro was walking towards at the end, but you have no idea. So
Ha 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 ha! A surprise. I didn't watch it. You guys, it was just the last couple of minutes, I promise. I just I had to go somewhere, so I was like, I'll watch this later. And then fast forward to tonight, and then Takira's like, it's time. And I was like, surprise. I am watching Mission Impossible 3 with my husband on the cell phone. I was not ready for this because we're watching all the Mission Impossible movies and they are not good.
Ah!
It's like Fast and Furious all over again. You know what I mean? It's like instead of it being all about family, it's all about the team.
Yeah.
It's pretty much the same thing.
Yeah.
Egotistical actors who just are really, you know. Oh, Heather. Yeah, after Robin's funeral today, I couldn't wait to laugh with my friends. Thank you guys. I sadly missed it cuz I was at work and I saw the message many hours after. Um so I did not see it. So I hope that maybe it's recorded cuz it did go live. So I'm hoping I can go back and watch it, but
I think
I'm so glad that you got to, Heather, and I know that you were closer, much closer with Robin than I was, so I'm very sorry for your loss. Sincerely.
absolutely.
Yeah. But he's not suffering anymore and I take great solace in that. Jermaine, great stream. Thank you. Thank you guys. So here's the deal. This may be the last episode of Truer Detectives. I don't know unless another season comes out and then we'll rally this whole thing back together. Um but we do technically owe 2 more episodes of Finding Found to our, you know, 10 viewers. You know who you are. Love you. Love you long time. Thank you so much. So, here's the deal. We owe 2 episodes. I was going to release them after this. Here's what I think makes more sense. I think we wait until we're closer to the second season dropping.
It can be our like pre-episode.
I think it makes more sense. I don't think it make any sense to do it now. Heather says, and I can't find a single picture with him, so prepare to be sick of me when I see you guys. We're taking a million pictures. Oh, Heather. Of course
I
we are.
love pictures. I love,
Also,
love, love
I haven't
pictures.
seen you in so long, and that needs to change.
And also, nobody knew me when I was at camp last year, so it's gonna be very different.
Heather
And
does not go to camp. We do not see Heather at camp.
oh, okay.
Last time I saw Heather was at Pandemic. Somehow that doesn't seem right, but I think it is. Anyway, Heather, what's the next convention that you're going to? You should let us know.
Yes.
It's not official yet, but I may be attending Brooklyn Comic Con, which is interesting.
Because of
And
these
actually,
movements.
Heather, I'm going to talk to Akila. Maybe we can get you an invite to Kiki's wedding. It's in October, and you should come. It's in Virginia if you're interested. That's it. I just invited you. You can be my plus one. I don't know if my husband's coming with me or not. No idea because I'm poor. Oh no. Could you swing Virginia in October, Heather? Okay, so we're going to Kiki, do you love
You
me?
love me.
So much. We sang that weekend. Okay, so we will postpone on Finding Found. Those will be like preliminary Finding Found season 2 episodes where we do the playlist for the characters. That was a request that we got, and also where we talk about true crime cases that remind us of or slightly resemble the case of Gabby Mosley going missing or any of the other characters that we decide trigger a memory for us. Obviously, we'll be talking about Ariel Castro in a big way. Yes, I just drove to Virginia a couple weeks ago. Let me know. Oh, girl. All right, we'll be messaging you about that. So we will wait on that. So for now, Takeerah and I are going to be taking a break. Weird. Big weird.
Not really, but
It's big weird. It is a little bit weird.
no,
It's
I mean not really a break.
missing my girl Lacey, Jermaine says. Yeah, I mean, no, you and I will not be taking breaks at all.
Mm-mm.
But we will be taking a break from each other, apparently. So, if you needed to cure a fix, you can find her on all the socials at Connie Dixon for life. With it because it's with a Y and the number 4.
and
So,
and on your podcast.
yep, and she's got her own podcast now. It's called TWD Walk. Nope. TWD, The Ones
The
Who
ones
Live
who live.
podcast. It's on Spotify and Apple and
Amazon.
Amazon. So she's got that going with 3 other ladies. So they are doing that together. And how many episodes do you have out now? Just one?
One, yeah. The other
Yeah,
one
the
comes out on
non-spoiler.
Sunday.
Okay. I will be with Squawking Dead doing coverage also of The Ones Who Live. So now we are in competition with each other and we are enemies now. So I will be doing that with Squawking Dead. Kira has her own spinoff. Correct. To be fair, I spun off from Squawking Dead for this channel. So spinoffs is spinoffs is spinoffs. So we will be doing The Ones Who Live coverage, which is kind of why we'll be MIA for a while. Because that'll be 6 weeks of that. And then I don't know what's gonna happen. I don't know. I don't know what you're doing. You've got a blog thing going on too now.
My blog's also covering The Ones Who Live, but it's also just covering a lot of fandoms overall and BIPOC people and just all kinds of things. So even once the podcast is over, I'm still going to be busy.
You'll be doing that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I am unsure what Squawking Dead will be up to. We've got camp in May.
Mm-hmm.
And potentially at least one other convention this year. And then I'm not sure, but there's we've talked about covering some other stuff. So there's other stuff in talks. The Boys, House of the Dragon. I think those are the only 2 that we've actually confirmed.
Squawk of the Dragon.
I don't know. I told Dave to just drop it. It's fine. He loves coming up with a different way to shove the word squawk, which isn't a word, into things. It's fine. Jermaine said I might do watch parties. Not sure. Oh, for the Ones Who Live? Well, that would be fun. I mean, you can always live tweet too, whatever your fancy is.
My blog and my podcast will be live tweeting and then doing spaces on Twitter after every episode.
Please tell me it's not just you live tweeting on both accounts.
No.
Okay.
Everyone. I'm like, everyone.
I'm like, that's just so much work. You're like tweeting and then responding to your own tweets. Hell yeah, girl.
I know that's right.
She's doing it again. She's just agreeing with herself. It's so weird. Self-promotion, baby. So yeah, so we will be busy and we will not be doing this silliness anymore, which is sad. So thank you, True Detective season 4, for being weird, but at least giving us a reason to meet on Wednesdays. So you will
Thank
see us
you for
later.
giving me a reason to say
Evangeline. Meanwhile, my channel will go back to normal programming. So you will see some hopefully some zombification education episodes coming out with me and Aiden. I have an interview that should hopefully be coming out either this weekend or next weekend with a guy named Kyle Goodman, who created a brand new zombie comic book, which is pretty cool. That's over on Kickstarter. So I will be releasing some things here at least once a week. You'll see something from me, whatever that may be. I do have to go back to the Clementine comic book, even though I don't want to, because people have asked for it. And I will not disappoint my one fan. It's my husband. That's my only fan. I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. He doesn't watch this.
Richie either.
All right. We love you guys, and we're so thankful for all the subscribers that we picked up during this coverage. And I'm sorry that Takeerah and I won't be together for a little while here, but you know where to find us. And if you're like, that's a travesty, you should be covering this other show, well, then simply like this video, because somehow I'll know. And then also leave a comment saying that you want us to cover something, and maybe we'll think about it. and maybe we won't, but probably we will. Which is like, it better be like a good suggestion. Yeah.
Maybe we'll detect it.
Maybe it's not going to be. I don't know. Don't make it something bad. If it's American Horror Story, I'll die. I'll die. I'll die and I'll refuse. Okay. All right. Love you guys.
Love
We
you
will see
guys.
you whenever we see you.